But,
Guess we gotta take what we get.
Okay, if we take the noise, because we gotta have him. And please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Joe, would you call the roll?
Member Aldred, Member Vanderhayden, Member Hubbard,
Here.
Member Peters,
Here,
Member Estrada,
here,
Vice Chairman Garza, Chairman Benedict.
Here. Any changes to the agenda?
no, sir.
Good. Commissioners, approval of the minutes from, our last meeting on March 2nd.
We read them, and I make a motion that we accept the minutes as written.
I second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Lingering one.
Motion passes. Now, we're on to the consent agenda. Explanation for the audience, these issues are considered, these will be enacted in one motion, one roll call vote of the commission. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a commission member or any of the public would like to pull them from the consent agenda. And then we will it'll go through the normal process and hear the whole presentation. Any of these the commission wants to pull?
No.
Even from the public want to pull any of these? Seeing no one, commissioners?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as written, number one, E1 and E2, and DSA-23-000008 and DSA-22-00228.
I'll second.
Very good, I got a motion and a second. We'll call the roll.
Yep. Member Hubbard,
Here.
Member Peters,
Here.
Member Estrada,
Aye.
Yes,
Chairman Benedict.
Yes. Okay. On to our new business. You all that haven't seen our process, we'll have a presentation from the staff. And then the commission it'll come back to the commission. The commission will be able to ask questions and have some discussion. Then we'll ask the applicant or their representative to come up and speak to us a little bit about that. And then we will open it up to the public for any of you that would like to comment about it. There'll be a 3-minute limit. Please don't repeat anything, but we certainly do want to hear what you have to say about the particular item. And then it'll come back to the commission and we'll have a vote. That's as clear as mud. We'll move on to number 1. Public hearing, consider affording the recommendation of approval to the city council for Capital R Construction for DSA 230061. Joe, are we ready?
All right. Capital R Construction's requesting a zone change from B2 to B3 for approximately a little over a half acre of land located at 1654 North Pinal, also known as Dells. The zone change is being requested to allow the front setback relief to expand the restaurant and upgrade the premises. This includes making the restrooms ADA accessible. The site is within the community corridor land use category, which encourages property to be within the B3 zoning category. This zone district allows property owners to push the buildings and architecture forward to the street. This is a general development standard for that community corridor land use area. You can see, again, it's community corridor land use. The existing zoning is B2, going to B3. And when looking at the review criteria, we look at the following three criteria. It's all covered in your staff report. We're just going to hit on a couple of key topics tonight. And that's the first one that you see, the actions consistent with the city's general plan. We do have other stipulations in our general plan and action steps and goals. And the CC1 goal is transition community corridor areas to become more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly environments, particularly along major street corridors. That includes the action step to promote site design features, reducing the front setbacks and building placement moving forward that approaches and embraces the public sidewalks and streets. And then CC2, promote diverse business, retail, and office uses in the community corridor areas. We did meet or exceed all requirements for notifications, and we did not receive any comments on this particular item. Pretty quick presentation. In conclusion, staff recommends the commission forward a recommendation of approval to the city council for the zone change request, DSA 23-00061, from B2 to B3. Any questions?
Commission, any questions?
No, it's pretty cut and dry.
All right, would their applicant or their representative like to come forward and speak to us a minute? Please state your name and address for the record.
Rusty Riggs, address 6853 North Highland Lane, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Anything you'd like to add to the presentation, or?
Well, it was going smoothly. I don't want to take away from it, but so, no, Dell's Piece has been here since 1967. It's one of the favorite local establishments, and they're just looking to increase their restrooms to be more accommodating for ADA reasons and things like that. So that's the main purpose of the project.
Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now open the public portion of the meeting. Anyone like to address this issue? Anybody from the public like to address this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring it back to the commission.
Sounds like it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that the commission forward a recommendation of approval to city council of the zone change request DSA-23-00061 from general business B2 to central business B3 to the city council.
I'll second.
Very good. Any discussions on the motion? I do have a question. Do we have a plan for the changes coming forward in a quick manner, or let us know what that's about, where we're at with that?
There'll be a minor amendment for the site plan submitted, or a minor site plan submitted in the future that won't come before you because it's relatively small changes. So, and then they'll follow that up with some building permits.
Very good. All right. Thank you. Appreciate understanding the process. All right. Michelle, you call the roll?
All right. Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Chairman Benedict?
Yes. Okay, motion passes.
4-0.
Good.
Motion passed.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate you. Okay, next, DSA 23-00204. Consider a request for a conditional use permit for a wireless communication tower. Jacqueline? Jacqueline?
I'm waiting for the,
Oh, the technology, okay.
good evening, Commissioners. This request is for Dish Wireless, and they're requesting a conditional use permit for a wireless telecommunication tower that's approximately 124 feet in height, and it's located in, at the Kiwanis Field in Carl McNatt Park. And the red dot shows the, where it'll be located. It's proposing to locate the wireless antenna on a light pole for the baseball field with the ground equipment in a new enclosed area. The proposed light pole will be painted to match the existing light poles, and the proposed antenna is located above the height of the lights. Here's a review criteria that's outlined in the staff report. In addition to the typical conditional use permit requirement review criteria, there are additional wireless telecommunication criteria that is also evaluated in the staff report. Looking at a few of these, one of the criteria is that the proposed use will not have no adverse effect upon the abutting property. There's no anticipated adverse impact to those properties. The light pole will blend in with the other lights, and the pole is no closer than 183 feet from the nearest property line. And in addition, we've added a couple of conditions to match the equipment compound block wall with the existing structures located in the park, and where possible, allow for co-location of additional carriers on the tower in the future. Regarding notification, staff and the applicant met or exceeded all those requirements. Since writing the staff report, I have received a couple of emails. One was an inquiry about the project where I sent them the staff report and had some comment or questions about the technology. And then one of the other ones with the printout you received today, they had concerns with the site, negative effects on the property, and concerns with potential negative effects of wireless telecommunication towers. And then I also followed up with them with the staff report as well, linked to the staff report. Staff recommends the commission approve the conditional use permit and an associated resolution with the following conditions: match the equipment compound block wall with an existing structures located in the park, and where possible, allow for co-location of additional carriers on the tower. Happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
I have one question.
Yes, please.
It might be dumb.
Nope.
So this is for Dish Communication?
Yes,
Dish-
Dish
so
Wireless.
Is it for their internet, or is it for Dish?
I believe it's for their internet, but the applicant may be able to answer
for
more
the
questions
Dish
on that.
Itself, okay. That makes sense. Okay.
Okay. There's anything?
I'll wait for that.
All right, very good. Okay, the applicant or their representative available to come up and talk to us a minute? Thank you. Please give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Brad Lowe with SmartLink, 4313 East Amberwood Drive, Phoenix, Arizona, 85048.
Great, thank you. Anything you'd like to add to the presentation?
No, just that we strategically located that site based off, minimal impact, using existing verticality. The existing ball field light pole will be replaced. We'll have the additional lights, illuminating the field for, trying to minimize any type of impact for a new telecommunications site.
Okay,
So it is for the internet portion of Dish?
It's actually for Dish Wireless, so it's going to be a new cell phone provider service, which will also help the residents in the area with, they'll have a competitive pricing product that they can use, but it is for actually wireless communications. But they also do like other carriers. You can use that to utilize for home internet as well through that system.
Is it, okay.
I got a question.
yes.
Dish Wireless, now, you say you're entering the market now, the wireless market? Or they are?
Oh,
already in it?
they're in the market, so they're already covering 30% of the United States, so they have another deadline in the middle of June to cover 70% of the United States, so they're just coming into this market, meaning the service providing, to residents.
Okay, and it's new into Casa Grande, you're saying?
Correct, this will be the first site.
Are there any other future sites, cell sites that are planned for this area?
Not that I know of that I'm representing my client on, but there probably will be future ones coming in. This is the initial one that I'm representing the client on.
And I'm sure they looked into shared sites also.
Yes, correct. This was just a difficult search ring, as we call it in our industry, meaning the area that they wanted to cover, they needed to cover. There was no existing verticality they could co-locate on.
Yeah. Reason why I say this, there's a existing carrier site along the third baseline on one of the light standards. And this one is going along the first base side, dugout side.
Okay. I don't think that existing, I'm not sure who the carrier is on that site, but I don't think it's a major carrier anymore. I think it's a decommissioned site.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
So will this help speed up the people who already have Dish, their internet? Would that interlay with that?
If they enter into a dish, yes, it will increase their capacity for data.
Okay.
But it's also going to provide an additional carrier that all those residents could use with competitive pricing product. And I do want to add, Dish did do a radio frequency electromagnetic energy report that shows that the site is well below any permissible FCC maximum exposure levels. There's no exposure on the accessible ground access working area. The center line of those antennas are at 120 feet approximately, I think 122 feet exactly. So I know there was a concern that Jacqueline sent to us that we provide that report as well to staff. The EME report is the short way to call it. But it's a radio frequency report that shows that everything's below FCC safe standards.
All right. Anything else? No. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
I now open the public portion of the meeting for this request. Anybody from the public like to address this issue, please come forward. Seeing no one, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring it back to the commission.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that the commission approve the conditional use permit and associated resolution DSA-23-00204 with the following conditions as noted by staff included in our recommendation.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Michelle, would you call the roll?
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Chairman Benedict?
Yes. All right, motion passes.
4-0.
Next, DSA 23-0045, a PAD, a planned area development for Tri-Valley PAD. And Jacqueline's tonight.
So, all right. So this is a major amendment for the Tri-Valley PAD for Lot 1. The site is 9.36 acres and is currently zoned as PAD with the permitted uses, to have all permitted and conditional uses allowed within the B2 General Commercial Zoning District. The site has been redeveloped with multi-tenants since Walmart has relocated from here. So there's additional space in the back of the building that the owner would like to utilize. So this request is to establish additional conditional uses within the building on Lot 1. And those uses include warehouses limited to less than 40% of the current building, bowling alleys, and indoor self-storage. And just want to reiterate that all would be limited to the existing building outlined on the aerial here. Here are the PAD review criteria. Staff report goes into additional detail on all of these. I'll be looking at the two highlighted ones. One of them is the interrelationship of the plan elements to conditions both on and off the property. This is located at the southeast corner of Florence and Colorado. in an area developed already for a commercial center. The request is to add additional uses as conditional uses that are currently not allowed within the PAD. These conditional uses would allow for planning staff as well as the planning commission to evaluate each of these requests on a case-by-case basis. Regarding the general plan, the location of the properties within community corridors, and PAD is an allowed use within community corridor land use category. And one of the goals of community corridor is to promote diverse business, retail, and office uses in the community corridor areas. With regard to notification, staff and the applicant met or exceeded all the requirements. Since publishing of the staff report, I did receive 2 inquiries. One was from an owner, I received a phone call, and it's one of the owners directly behind the site on Colorado and has concerns with the existing landscaping. So we did add an additional condition of approval you'll see on the next slide. And I did also, somebody came into the office last week inquiring about this and just wanted to know exactly what was going on and explained it to them. And that it was limited to the existing building. So with that, recommendation is to forward to City Council to approve the major amendment to the Tri-Valley Planned Area Development for Lot 1, establishing additional conditional uses within the PAD with the following condition of approval. Prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy for any of the new allowable uses, the owner shall work with the city to determine landscaping meets the approved landscape plan, and any missing or dead plants or trees shall be replaced. So happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
All right. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for staff? No? All right. Just to be clear, these new uses could cover any amount of, and any position in that building. Is that correct?
Correct, except for, the warehousing would be limited to no more than 40%.
And it's in the back of the building, correct?
Yeah, currently they're looking at the back of the building, but yes, potentially if one of the current tenants moves out, something else one of these uses could go in there. But again, it would be a conditional use permit that would come back.
And if it's in the back, like a bowling alley or whatnot, how would you access it? I mean, would you have to go to the back?
Yes, there is parking back there, and there is, that's something that we would evaluate at the conditional use. And bowling alleys, that was just something that
Okay.
just something that they were potentially looking at as a future use, maybe if something did leave. But because it wasn't part of the PAD, they were just looking to cover all their bases, basically.
Because
Yeah,
doesn't the,
The way it is existing right now, there are, in the rear, it looks like there's separate suites in there, different doors with different numbers, and maybe a couple of small businesses that are currently in there right now. That's what it appears right now, so.
Correct. I believe there are some back there already.
So it's not just the back end of like, say, Joann's Fabrics or
That's what I was
Planet Fitness.
Okay.
There are, it looks, from the outside anyways, it appears that it is broken up into several different suites, so I think that's.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so because when Walmart was there, they used that area for the back room, basically, and so when these new tenants came in, they didn't need that whole depth of the building, so it has been,
I just
You know,
assumed, like, when
redeveloped.
people get their deliveries, they would come through the back, and I just assumed that they were using that back portion. So
Right.
would they just make it like hallways so they could go through the back for the front businesses?
I don't believe that they're gonna go from the front to the back. That it's separate in the back, and
It's already separate?
right, yeah, that's what it appears. And like Jackie said, when Walmart was there, Walmart occupied that whole area there, and they had storerooms and everything in the back, and that's where all their deliveries took place.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like decent. There's there's plenty of space around the side and the back too, from my perspective,
Yeah,
I
there
guess.
is,
So, you know,
yeah.
for accessing, if that's the way they wanted to approach it.
And I would note, just with Commissioner Hubbard's point, like, so it would be done through a tenant improvement, a building permit to look at the building side of things. And then, again, it would need a conditional use permit for any of these uses.
Okay.
Maybe they're
That would show a site plan and
clear up some.
Okay, anything else for staff? All right, would the applicant or their representative please come forward and talk to us? And they're not here.
Or not.
he's out of state. I don't believe he had a representative available.
Okay. Dang it, okay. What do we want to do? Want to discuss more with the staff? Or
No,
your concerns? or-
no, I'm fine with it. I was just trying to figure it out.
I think we figured it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
we figured it out.
All right. Very good. Okay, we'll open the public portion of the building. Time to go home. Please state your name and address. for
My
the-
name is John Dremler, I'm 420 North Colorado. I'm the one that lives right behind what we're talking about
Very
right
good.
now.
Very good.
I've been in this since 1995, and I'm asking for help.
Okay.
When you say we're going to plant landscape and take care of it, I'm saying, you're not, and I can prove it. There's supposed to be 22 African sumacs with a green shield that protected us when Walmart extended the building. There was also a condition that they would not use any of the back for storage. So here we are, 27 years later, there is zero African sumacs. We got some other, I'm not sure what those big trees are, but they're not a green shield. We went from 0 doors in the back of the building to, I believe it's 3 roughly 10 by 8 roll-up doors, which have traffic and trucks. And they added the loading dock. The loading dock, they did go through the process, and they did get go through the whole zoning thing and everything else. And at that particular part of the fence, they did build it 8 feet tall. On the rest of the fence, because of the fire lane and everything else, they actually took a 5'6" fence that I have in some areas and made it 5 foot. So people come up and actually just put their hands there and look in the backyard. And I've been on the city, I talked to Jacqueline, she was nice, we tried to figure it out, but told her, I got, it's all here, it's just, and you go to the city, the only activity I got was when Walmart wanted to relocate, then they come and planted some trees a little bit, they water for a month, and then they're gone. So now we're sitting here with this vacant, and now they're looking at increase. We know with warehousing comes trucking, so we know we're gonna have more traffic. There's just no doubt about it. What they've already done, like I said, with the gym there and everything else, they took about a 45, 50-foot area and put parking in the back with the loading dock. So now they're down to 25 feet. If they put in the African sumacs like they were supposed to, because, here again, I got it from Rick Miller. Oh, we'll replace those, we got your back, we'll take care of you. And I'm like, okay, fine. Well, here, like I said, we are. African sumacs get roughly 20 to 30 feet in diameter. What does that do to your fire lane there? It's almost gone. So now they with the parking and what this thing is morphed into, with the Walmart, there was no storage, no nothing back there. Even Christmas stuff, they could not store back there. Semis had to stay so far from the fence. Now we got semis that can be within 5 feet of the fence. And you could throw them a hamburger when you're having a cookout. They're that close. And yet, the only time we get attention is in times like this here. And it's unfortunate the city I'm looking for zoning to do something, that can help me, that's going to protect me. And had they just did an 8-foot wall to start with, none of this would be an issue. I mean, I know I live next to a shopping center. I'm gonna get noise, I got it. But not when people are actually semis are just parked there idling or looking over the fence. My time's up.
No, I stopped it, sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's
Thank
right, that's great. No, thank you. We appreciate getting that information. Anybody else like to address this issue?
Yes, my name's Hugh Byrne, 1549 East Prickly Pear Place, Casa Grande, Arizona. And a couple of questions I
hold on.
have for this is the,
Yeah, there.
There we go.
We good? Okay, we're good. Go.
Okay. I thought I was done already.
You were.
Has anybody taken a look at the impact of the parking space available or needed be required for a bowling alley that, if it's a standard sized bowling alley of 32 lanes, we're talking about 150 parking spaces that are going to be required for that kind of setup. That's not to include the additional warehousing and parking needed for that area. Has anyone looked at the impact on the intersection of Florence and Cottonwood on what the additional traffic is going to create and the additional traffic that's going to be created on Florence Boulevard? So these are some really impactful things, that need to be looked at prior to approving this. Is there any idea of how big of an entertainment center they plan on putting in? How many lanes? 32 lanes? 15 lanes? That's before we can make any kind of decision, we need to know what the impact and the size of that is going to be. We need more information.
Gotcha.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. Would anybody else like to address this issue? I will take a moment to address just a minute, may it be, your questions. I think everything that you brought up are certainly concerns of ours that will be addressed when the actual application for a specific use comes before us as a conditional use permit. Is that correct, staff? That a fair representation?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the request before you is simply to allow the applicant to ask permission in the future for these additional uses. Does not authorize these uses whatsoever at the current time. It just says that if the application were to be approved, it would give the applicant the right to come back before you at a public hearing and ask for warehousing, mini warehouse, bowling alley. And if they did ask for that, obviously we do then require traffic impact analysis to look at the traffic impact. We would look at the impact on existing parking, and all those issues that were brought up this evening would be evaluated at a future public hearing if they actually asked for those additional uses. I will also say that regardless of what the decision is tonight, I will direct our code enforcement staff to look into whether or not the facility is in compliance with their existing landscape plan, okay? If the landscape plan required the trees that Mr. Dremler noted, then we'll make sure they get planted. Yeah, that would be great. If you could leave that with Jacqueline, it would be wonderful. But regardless of the decision tonight, if they're in violation of their landscape plan, we will take follow-up code enforcement action to require them to plant any missing plant materials.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody else from the public like to address this issue?
They're currently in violation of part of the planning. Does that negate the ability for you to vote yes for this, if they're in violation of what they're supposed to be doing already?
That's a pretty deep legal issue that I think, I'm not sure how to answer.
Well, the answer to the question is there's nothing that requires the commission to deny the application because there's a violation of the current landscape code, right? That's a separate matter. The commission certainly, you have a lot of discretion on a zoning matter, so you could do that if you were so inclined.
Sure.
But there's nothing that requires you to do so. I can guarantee you that the city code enforcement staff will look into the landscape issue to confirm whether or not there's any violation or not.
Okay. Anybody else from the public like to address this issue? Thank you. Appreciate that.
I am Dara Lannon. I live at 925 North Morrison Avenue, Casa Grande, Arizona, 85122. I am his daughter about that. And this is not a landscaping issue. This is a green shield. It was supposed to protect our property from what goes on behind the building. My kids swimming, the kids playing, and it's constant. There's constant traffic. There's the gymnastics place that's back there. There's trucks constantly back and forth. There's the Goodwill with their huge donations, the drop-offs. And it's not, he makes it sound like it's a landscaping thing, like, oh, they didn't trim the bushes. There's nothing there. There's nothing stopping it. The only thing that could possibly be a remediation is to extend the 8-foot wall all the way down the whole building. Then the green shield wouldn't matter, because even if you plant trees now, they're not going to be 25-year-old green shield trees. That's not what we're going to get. We're going to get more little guys that are going to die when they forget about it and then move on to the next project. So I would say that the best solution would be to have them extend the 8-foot wall all the way across. That would then mitigate any concerns between their loading, our property, and our privacy, and their use of their property. So let's just leave that with you. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Appreciate that insight.
Is there already an 8-foot wall?
We'll ask that question when it comes back to it. Okay, anybody else from the public like to address this issue? All right, thank you all for that. Very much appreciated. It's good insight for us. It helps in the whole process. Close the public portion of the meeting, bring it back to the commission. I'm sure we have several questions. All right.
So is there already an 8-foot wall there? I mean, adjacent?
And do we know the requirement?
And do we know the requirements?
So the answer would be, I can't tell you if there's an 8-foot
Right.
wall or a 5-foot wall.
I
But
remember.
what we can do is we can look at the major site plan to see how tall of a wall was required. Do you know the answer to that, Jacqueline?
I do not off the top.
Okay, but whatever the major site plan approved for
We
wall,
need to keep it.
whether it's 5 foot, 6 foot, or 8 foot, if that's not in compliance with the wall requirement, we will ensure that occurs as well, right, as part of our review. What I'm hearing, though, is that whatever wall is there today complies with what was approved, but they want something taller. And I can certainly appreciate that. And in fact, staff would probably be recommending that if it was like a conditional use for warehousing for more truck traffic, we probably would say as a conditional use, as a condition, build a taller wall to screen that truck traffic. But we're not there at that point. We're not there where they're asking for the conditional use. But I can assure you, if the plan required an 8-foot wall, we're gonna make them build an 8-foot wall. But I don't know what the plan required that was approved in what year, Jacqueline? The last one?
90?
87?
Quite a few years ago, yeah. But we'll pull it up. We have the records and we'll
Okay.
look at them.
Can we just recommend it just to make sure it's on record?
Can did you have some other conditions for this one? Can you roll that up?
Yeah.
So based on my commitment that I just made to the commission, this is kind of an irrelevant condition because we're gonna do this no matter what happens
Right.
here tonight.
I just thought maybe we should have it in writing.
Yeah, I think to me, it's good to have it, as record of what I want to approve.
Right.
And,
Landscaping, would landscaping include any fencing or fencing violations?
So the city code requires already that whatever landscaping or walls that the planning commission approves on a major site plan, that the property owner has to maintain it forever in compliance with that major site plan. So if the major site plan that planning commission approved years ago said an 8-foot wall and there's a 6-foot wall, then they're in zoning violation. And we'll require it to be 8 foot, right? So this code this recommended condition that you see on the screen really is existing city code that we can apply in any case. You are required to maintain your landscaping per your approved landscape plan.
Okay, so,
Exactly.
so my point being, we don't have to add any other stipulations to this, correct? This would cover?
I don't think so. I think we need to add, like, to original code, to whatever the original, what they said they were gonna do. And they
Well,
haven't
that's
been.
what it says.
But we
Meets
wanna
the
be
approved, meets the approved landscape plan. For me, I'd like an elegant way to address the wall. An expansion of the wall, even if the original was at 5 feet or 6 feet or whatever the original approval was, I'd like to be able to address that it needs to be 8 feet plus, and like I say, I'd love an elegant way to add that verbiage, to add that to this, so that, just because I'd like it to be real clear that what I'm voting for includes.
Sure.
And with understanding that, all of this will be under consideration when we have the actual conditional use permit. I
Right.
get that.
So Jacqueline, can you go back to the aerial, please? And does your aerial have the actual property boundaries on it or not? Can you see that? There's several what's a little more complicated here is you have several different lots, right? So we're talking about probably one lot that has the old Walmart building. There, I assume there's a property line somewhere along the eastern edge of that building, right? Somewhere in there? So the commission could, as a condition of the rezoning, require that the applicant construct an 8-foot wall along their southern boundary, along their lot, right? You can do that. You can add it as a condition. You can add it right now. Or you can defer that condition to when and if you ever hear a conditional use, to add the uses in the future. That's your decision. But you certainly have the authority to add a condition for an 8-foot wall along the southern boundary of their lot if you're so inclined to do so. Is another recommendation to City Council.
And just to see the parcel line, the yellow line on the east side is the parcel boundary for the building of Lot 1.
That would,
Because you have a laser pointer, but they can't see it.
Yeah, if it's not even.
So
that would be the Ace, that would
So
be
the-
the Ace Hardware building, I believe.
So the wall,
That one works.
so the wall isn't, how do I say, isn't even in the lot that we're considering this change for.
Portions of it are, for sure. If Jacqueline could put the one with the red outline.
Yeah, because it's.
So that wall goes all along the whole southern boundary. But the property you're looking at tonight is the one outlined in red, okay? So that's the only one you have authority on tonight, because that's the one that's
Right.
asking for the zone change, right? But there is certainly a wall that continues along that south boundary the whole length. Mr. Chair, while you're pondering there,
Yeah, I'm trying to compose the elegance that I asked for earlier.
I'm gonna say this too, is that the complicating factor here is that the applicant is not present with us this evening to consider any additional condition you may choose to imply, right? So I'm just saying, you know, you might want to consider postponing it to allow the applicant a chance to come to the hearing to, because they may just say that's fine, or they may have concerns, I don't, but, it's unfortunate that they're not there, I agree, and, but you don't have to, I'm just throwing that out there for your consideration.
Well, I guess my leaning is, you know, I'm not in a hurry to approve this for them. And, you know, if they're not here, then, it might save us, what am I trying to think of, issues or, you know, that they might bring up about unfair process because they didn't get to address it,
But it was
just to
it was-
postpone it.
But it was their choice to be here.
You're absolutely
And
right.
if they
You
don't-
are absolutely, you're
So, I
absolutely
mean,
right.
Then we
Yep.
make the rules that they're not here.
We're gonna make the rule whether they're here or not. We
Absolutely.
certainly have the right to do
Yeah.
so. I'm just saying that, you know, it eliminates,
But then when they come back to propose this, then we can kind of go over it if they.
yeah. Normally, I don't propose motions as the chair, so.
There we go. So,
Anthony, where you at, brother?
so I would propose either add this
Or even have
As-
code enforcement.
or we table it until next month.
And what would be your motion?
My motion would be that being that the developer or owner has failed to show up, we have questions that are not able to be answered. So I
Is the
make
de-
a motion that we table this until next month.
Is the
or-
developer-
Or the, or
I would
such a
definitely
time,
second that.
or such a time that the developer or owner or representative can present his facts to us.
Anthony, talk to us.
Yeah, I would second that. I mean, we have a little bit too many unanswered questions that we would have to speak to the developer with.
Very good. I hear a motion to table. Do I hear a second?
Second.
He said he seconded.
Okay, I have a motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none, would you call a roll?
Can I ask, is the
Yep.
developer out of state?
Jacqueline?
I believe so, yes.
So he could teleconference in?
We don't,
No?
we did not want to set precedent to allow applicants to call in.
So he would have to send somebody?
Yeah, and he didn't,
He can do that, okay. Yeah, let's do that.
I have okay, the end of discussion. All right, please call the roll.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Chairman Benedict?
Yes. All right, it's been tabled. Thank you all very much for your input.
And just so the public
Please
knows.
stay in. Please
Just
stay
so the
with us
public
on this.
knows, we will be re-notifying the next hearing. You all will get notice once again of the next hearing. So, and we will look into the wall and the landscaping in the meanwhile.
Very good. Again, thank you all for your input. Helps us a lot. Next, we'll consider a land use request from Jack Gilmore, on behalf of Castle Dome, for DSA 220254, amending the general plan for these acres from commerce business to community corridor, and a zone change, DSA 22000253. Well, it's not the Jacqueline show anymore. Now it's all you, dude.
And notice I made my title so long that it gave me time to pull up the PowerPoint presentation.
That's proper planning, bro.
That's right, there's some art to that.
Yes.
So good evening, Planning Commissioners. As you introduce this item in front of you is specifically for two requests. The name of the project is titled Casablanca, but there are two requests in front of you involving 273 acres of property. This property lies in between I-10, which is to the east, and the Palm Creek Resort to the west, between Florence on the south and Cottonwood to the north. It's currently zoned urban ranch, and it falls mostly within the commerce and business land use category of the general plan. The two requests being considered this evening are for a zone change from urban ranch to planned area development. The PAD, as proposed, would place this area into 4 land uses. Light industrial would be abutting I-10, next towards the north side next to Cottonwood, and then further to the south is an area proposed for commercial uses. Camino Marcado would be extended from Florence Boulevard up to Cottonwood. On the west side of Camino Marcado lies 2 different proposed land uses, one being medium density residential that's predominantly abutting the Palm Creek neighborhood, and then an area to the south is designated for a combination of high density and medium density residential. The other request in front of you this evening is an amendment to the general plan. It would be considered a minor amendment for a 120.9 acre portion of the site to be revised from commerce and business to community corridor. And that's primarily to accommodate the proposed medium density residential land use. The amendment to the general plan would basically expand the community corridor land use. As you see, it's currently designated that to the west. Palm Creek is within that designation. And there's areas along the Florence Boulevard corridor already within that community corridor designation. This would be an expansion of that area. And then the remainder of the site would stay within commerce and business. When reviewing amendments to the general plan, it's subject to these 5 criteria, and the staff report goes into these, and we feel these have all been met. I do just want to say this has been considered to be a minor general plan amendment. Anytime you go from commerce and business to community corridor, regardless of the acreage, it can be done at any time during the year. Staff does recommend that Planning Commission move to forward to City Council a recommendation to approve this minor general plan amendment from commerce and business to community corridor. The second request is a little bit more lengthy. It entails the zone change. And as I mentioned, it's currently zoned urban ranch, and they're requesting to go to planned area development. When reviewing zone changes to PADs, the criteria that you see on the screen here have to be addressed. I'm going to specifically focus on these highlighted items. The staff report does go into each of these in greater detail, however. The first 2 criteria that I want to talk about have to deal with the relationship of the plan elements to conditions both on and off the property, as well as pedestrian and vehicular ingress and egress. So, firstly, we feel that the arrangement of land uses are appropriate for the area. As I introduced the site on the previous slide, they are planning the residential land use to abut Palm Creek, which is already a multifamily residential use per our residential design standards. And then Camino Marcado will be the divider between the residential uses and the non-residential uses, placing the non-residential uses closer to I-10. So you have, like I say, light industrial and commercial between I-10 and Camino Mercado. One of the concerns was, however, how access through this site was going to be achieved. With the extension of Camino Mercado, it will help with extending vehicular traffic from Florence to Cottonwood. And also they are proposing an extension of Caceres, which flanks the western side of the PAD, and it would tie into Camino Mercado. However, as you can see on the screen, there's also a planned regional trail, or per our general plan, there's a Casa Grande linear park trail that has been identified along the eastern boundary of the PAD. And it basically is known as the Cox Road alignment. There's an easement that exists that's 66 feet wide. And there was importance to ensure that there would be connectivity to that future public trail. And then there was also some concerns with the fact that there's two out parcels. There's a 32.5 acre out parcel that sits in the southeast corner of the site. And it's access challenged because it's too close to the I-10 Florence interchange for the property to receive direct driveway access from Florence. And then there's another out parcel between I-10 and the PAD itself. It's only about 200 feet wide. It's not part of the ADOT right-of-way, and it's known as the Walton out parcel. That also is very access challenged because it's even closer to the I-10 Florence interchange. So if the 32.5 acre parcel can't get access to Florence, the Walton piece certainly wouldn't be able to. And that piece also goes all the way up to Cottonwood. And at Cottonwood, it would be too close to it meets the grade separation of the bridge over I-10, so there's no way to access it from there. So those were the two primary concerns regarding those two out parcels in addition to the trail. So as a result, there was notification to the Walton owners as well as the owner of the 32.5 acres of land. And there's been a lot of discussion between the applicant and the owners of the owner's representative of the 32.5 acres of land. And the PAD does propose how access would be achieved conceptually. Like I was mentioning on the previous slide, one opportunity is as an extension of Caceres that could tie in through their proposed commercial piece into that 32.5 acre parcel. It does also conceptually show a secondary ingress and egress point that could access that parcel. However, there's still the need to place some conditions of record just to ensure the timing and the appropriateness of where the locations are going to go, and also to ensure that the Walton piece does get access. And so we are recommending the following 4 conditions of record, and they have been slightly modified from how it's written within your staff report, so that's why I passed out the revised conditions. However, it's since been slightly more updated. Condition number 4 is just replaced with within 30 days of instead of the word immediately. That just ensures that there is a path forward to establishing the appropriate access. The second 2 criteria that I want to talk about is adequacy of the plan with respect to land use and building location, height, and building elevations. So there's some sensitivity with the proposal of industrial next to I-10. On one hand, it makes a lot of sense because with that great visibility, that site can be a magnet to attract nationally known developments. That land use area of industrial also within the PAD can accommodate some commercial uses, but there's really some importance for those buildings to look good. And primarily, there was concern about the screening of truck bays, et cetera, and architecture. And as a result, the PAD does specifically address the appearance of those buildings. Now, the conceptual rendering seen on your screen does show that the truck bays open to an internal corridor, so fronts of buildings parallel I-10. However, this plan's just conceptual in nature only, and ultimately the arrangement will be determined at the time of the major site plan. However, the PAD does include standards that indicates that if truck bays are within public view, there'll be screen walls between 8 to 10 feet tall, and the buildings will be designed in a manner where they'll be broken up architecturally. And it also goes on to say buildings as seen from I-10, Cottonwood Lane, and Camino Mercado will have particular special elevations. And Planning Commission will have an opportunity to ensure that these buildings look good at the time of major site plan consideration with the submittal of the specific elevations for the buildings. And then the other aspect of it is they are imposing various height standards that we feel are adequate with respect to where the buildings are planned. The industrial land use proposes a maximum height of 65 feet. The asterisk indicates that there are certain features of the building that can exceed that in accordance with typical height exceptions allowed per city code. The commercial area has a maximum height of 35 feet, and the residential areas are at 28 feet and 36 feet respectively. And of course, following our PAD residential design standards for multifamily development, there can't be any building within 50 feet of Palm Creek, for example, that's over 28 feet tall. The other criteria that I want to talk about is the impact of the plan on the existing and anticipated traffic and parking conditions. I touched upon this on a previous slide, however, one of the things that we looked at as well was the amount of traffic that this PAD could generate onto the overall street network. The applicant did provide a master circulation study. Now that's different from a traffic impact analysis in that it's a lot more of a general broad overview. It assumes at maximum build out what will be necessary and what would have to happen in order for this site to function and not have the surrounding roadway networks, not have them fail. And what the outcome of that master circulation study showed is that there would have to be a number of roadway improvements and widenings of roads, etc. However, at each individual site development, there will be a specific traffic impact analysis, and Planning Commission has an opportunity, as well as our city traffic engineer, to review these sites incrementally and make the determination of what improvements are necessary at that time. Since build out is likely to take a number of years, we also have to assume that within that time there'll be other improvements made to the roadway network independent of this project. And just to give you an overview of our circulation, all of the yellow arrows indicate arterial roadways. Florence, Cottonwood, and Courtson in these areas are designated as principal arterials, which will ultimately be 6-lane facilities with a center median, and as well as Hennis and Hacienda. And then we have Camino Mercado and Caceres, which are both identified as collector roads. And that seems to parallel Mission Parkway on the east side of I-10, which is also designated as a collector. And kind of a comparison is that if you think about the promenade, it's in some way a mirror image in that it functions off of an arterial to the south and an arterial to the north, which has not yet been improved to its ultimate standard of 6 lanes. and a collector road connecting the two. And this will be also greatly enhanced by the ultimate planned interchange at Courtson in I-10, which can be accessed through the extension of Hennis. Now, a lot of these seem like way off plans, but my next item on the agenda is discussing a PAD amendment for property just on the south side of Courtson and I-10 highlighted in yellow. So its development will prompt some of Hennis Road improvements. And immediately south of that, the area highlighted in white, is an application that we currently have under review to change that zoning to accommodate non-residential development. And so assuming all of these projects go forward, the improvements to Cottonwood, Hennis, and Courtson can all occur much sooner than we realize. Regarding the notification process, we followed that which is required in city code. There were 2 sign postings just because of the size of the property, one visible off of Cottonwood and one visible off of Florence. We did receive 2 comments, the first being from Rose Law Group, the representative of the ownership of the 32.5-acre out parcel. They had concerns and were recommending specific and stronger worded conditions to ensure that that parcel is provided adequate access. The conditions that I handed out are intended to address their concerns. Again, just reminding you that condition 4 is to say within 30 days of the transfer versus immediately upon the transfer. And then we also had heard from the ownership of the Walton property, the super skinny piece. They had a little bit more of general questions in terms of how their property was to get access. They're in a little bit of a different scenario because their property, although is very skinny adjacent to this Casablanca piece, it goes past Cottonwood all the way up to Courtson. So there are some additional access opportunities for them. However, staff feels that with the conditions as worded, it does help ensure that the Walton piece will get access as well as necessary. So there are 2 recommendations that staff is asking Planning Commission to consider. The first is that you forward to City Council a recommendation to approve the minor general plan amendment for that almost 121 acre from commerce and business to community corridor. And then we're also asking that you forward to City Council a recommendation to approve the zone change from Urban Ranch to PAD, subject to the updated technical modifications and updated conditions of record as reflected in your handout and further modified by changing the text of number 4. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners? I have one. Jim, you mentioned that Walton property, and it's a skinny slice. Do you have an approximate width of that property, west to east?
Commissioner Peters, it is approximately 250 feet, or excuse me, 200 feet.
Okay, so they could realistically place some sort of buildings or something on that site? Okay.
There is probably a way they could develop that site with linear buildings. That might be a great place for some narrow type office buildings or some type of non-residential development.
And they currently could access it from either Cottonwood or Florence Boulevard?
They would be really restricted from it because at both those locations, it's where the streets are it's where the streets separate from grade to go over I-10. And even if the road were level at the same grade,
right,
it would be way too close to have an intersection, given the proximity to the interchange per ADOT standards.
Well,
And the same same's true for that 32.5 acre parcel.
Right. So they would benefit, realistically, they'd benefit from any development going on out here, then, I would think. Okay?
Okay. You okay, you're deep in thought, or
I was just looking at it, that's it.
Anthony, deep in thought? Any other questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, would the owner or representative please come up forward and address the issue? Please state your name and address.
Good evening, Chairman. My name is Jack Gilmore, Gilmore Planning and Landscape Architecture, 2211 North 7th Street in Phoenix. I've had the pleasure of working with Jim and Paul, Public Works, Parks Department, to come up with this plan for the last 8 months. We have finessed some resolution on land use and access, and Jim's done a very thorough review of the project. We've had the chance to meet with our neighbors, and as Jim said, I think we have an understanding on the southeast corner access issue concern, and we've met with Walton as well. So I think, I like to say that we're in pretty good shape with our neighbors, and they are in support. So if there are questions, I know that in the future, we'll be coming back for site plan approval, and those site plan applications will include updated traffic impact statements, as Jim said. And I think we'll be looking at the evolution of circulation throughout this entire area. Florence is a busy street, and I think as this development comes in on both sides, it'll be maybe some more stress on Florence, but we're prepared to deal with that. I think the only thing holding us up right now is the possibility of getting sewer service. And I think as soon as we have a date certain on sewer, and we're working with Public Works and Kevin Lewis on that very issue, then I think we'd like to get back in for site plan approval and get this project started. If there are questions, I'd be glad to address them.
Very good, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for? No. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your input. Great. Okay, open the public portion of the meeting. Anybody from the public like to address this issue? Yes, come on up, give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Commissioner and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Omar Abdallah. I'm an attorney at Rose Law Group, 7144 East Stetson Drive in Scottsdale. I'm here on behalf of my client, 1P Investments. They're the owner of the 32-acre out parcel piece. I'll be brief, don't have a lot to say. Just wanted to thank your staff, Jim and Mark Graffius, and also the developer, IndyCap. Everyone's been great to work with. Really appreciate them and them being accommodating to us. We're comfortable with the stipulations, and we think it's a great project for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate hearing from you. Anybody else from the public like to address this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring it back to the commission.
Is there any particular order that we need to present this? I guess I'd like to,
Go ahead, you're on
Make
the,
a-
you're on the run there, brother.
all right, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we forward a recommendation, a positive recommendation to the city council for the land use request for minor general plan amendment for DSA-22-00254.
Nope.
No?
It's,
Am I wrong?
no,
I think it
DS
is 254.
It is.
Isn't it?
Yeah, you got it right.
You're right.
Okay.
You had it right.
You go, brother, you're ahead of both of us.
Do I have
We'll
a
be
second?
quiet.
That's my bad, I apologize.
Yeah, he's trying to keep us, see if we're awake. I mean,
Exactly,
that's what
I'll
he's doing.
second it.
Okay.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
He's a
Chairman Benedict?
Yes.
And then for the record, this one's, the next item is 22002530.
I had,
So confused.
Quick copy.
okay. I'd like to make a motion
I would love that.
for number 2, zone change from urban ranch to planned area development for PSA-22-00253
With the conditions.
with the
and
conditions and modifications as proposed by staff.
I'll second.
I second.
Oh, oh,
I beat you.
All right.
oh, let him have one.
All right.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Chairman Benedict?
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate you. Go, go, go. All right. Passed. And next, hold public hearing, consider a recommendation to council for request from EPS Group on behalf of CB Equity for a major amendment to Vista Ranch PAD, DSA 2200134. That the right number?
That's correct. On this slide, it's correct. I can't make any assurance that it doesn't change from time to time.
Well, Mr. Peters is on top of it.
Yes,
We believe in him.
He gets a gold star.
So good evening again. This is an amendment to an existing PAD for Vista Ranch. It's approximately 318 acres of land that is located near the southwest portion of Quartzon Road and I-10. The original planned area development zone was approved in around 2006, 2007 era. And it is in front of you this evening for an amendment. The land uses are all staying the same. The original PAD had proposed a multifamily residential area in the southeast corner of the PAD and commercial in the northeast corner and single-family residential further to the west. The amendment rearranges the land uses to a great degree. It expands the multifamily area by quite a bit and reduces the commercial area and also reduces the single-family area. As you see on the right, the area entitled multifamily will consume the area from Quartzon to the north down to the southern boundary towards the eastern portion of the site. The commercial's been relocated, and that's primarily to place it at the hard corner of the realignment of Hennis Road. And I'll talk about that being another change here in a moment on an upcoming slide. But really one of the more substantial of the changes is the density changes. Under the existing PAD, the maximum density for the single-family area would be 3.3 single-family dwelling units per acre, which would have yielded up to 792 homes. And there was 16 multifamily dwelling units per acre proposed, which would have yielded 320 multifamily units. One of the drivers for this amendment is we have modified our PAD residential design standards, allowing for single-family lots to be smaller and the lot widths to be narrower. And we also know that properties that have certificates of assured water supply, such as this site, have an opportunity to seek approval through ADWR for an increase in the number of certificates of assured water supply if it can be determined that no more groundwater is going to be withdrawn than from their original analysis to achieve a higher number of lots. And so those two factors combined is a great opportunity to make some modifications. And one of the things, though, that you'll notice is the multifamily area jumped up quite a bit in units, but that's because they are proposing a high-density residential area that lies within the commerce and business land use designation of our general plan, which can be a multifamily development between a minimum of 10 dwelling units per acre to a maximum of 45. But there's basically 3 multifamily areas. Other than that high-density area that can allow up to 45 dwelling units per acre, the multifamily areas further to the south are more of a medium-density mix. Regarding the criteria for planned area developments, the staff report goes into each of these in greater detail, but I'm just going to focus on the highlighted items. The first is conformance to the city's general plan. So the Vista Ranch PAD sits within 2 general plan land uses. It sits within commerce and business, and that reflects just a 40-acre area in the northeast corner where the high-density multifamily is proposed. And then the majority of the site falls within neighborhoods. Now, within the commerce and business land use designation, it supports uses such as light industrial, commercial, and multifamily between the 10 and 45 DUs per acre. So the multifamily being proposed in that area is appropriate. And then within the neighborhoods category, commercial sites are allowed on up to 30 acres, which this does meet. And then single family can be up to 4.5 dwelling units per acre. Multifamily is also allowed, but at a lesser density as proposed within their PAD. Just like with the previous project in front of you this evening, this area is also subject to our planned location of the Casa Grande Linear Park Trail, which is along the Cox Road easement. And our general plan does identify the trail being there, as does their PAD. They recognize that that will be there. And one of the recommended conditions of record is that in lieu of right-of-way dedication for Cox Road, this area will be designated for trail purposes. The general plan also has a guiding principle regarding best use of water resources, and that's a driver for one of the recommended conditions this evening. The original PAD received certificates of assured water supply specifically for multifamily units in addition to single family. And one of the conditions asks that 320 certificates of assured water supply be made available for the multifamily units, subject to the issuance of them by EDWR. What that would result in is the ability to plat that area into individual condo or townhome lots, which can either be individually sold to individual condo owners, or they can still be owned by one entity and simply rented out. The other criteria that I want to talk about is the impact of the plan on existing and anticipated traffic conditions. So I hinted at the fact that Hennis got realigned, and that is one of the things that I want to discuss. As you see, they are proposing a circulation network which involves the extension of a collector road through the site east-west and Hennis. I should also note that Courtson will ultimately have a planned interchange at I-10, so that will greatly help with circulation of the traffic needs for this development. Hennis is proposed to realign with this PAD, and it's mainly in concert with the proposed development to the south. I hinted at that on my previous presentation, but the area to the south of Vista Ranch, highlighted in that light gray, does have plans under review, and it was going to benefit both that development as well as Vista Ranch to relocate the alignment of Hennis. As you see on the screen, it was going to create an awkward entry point into the Vista Ranch development and an awkward exit point for the development to the south. It's planned as a principal arterial road, so it really wasn't seen as appropriate to put regional traffic through a neighborhood that's going to have a mixture of single-family and multifamily uses. So the proposed realignment basically shifts Hennis to the section line for a much greater distance. It does start to leave the section line before it gets to Courtson, but that's just so that it can tee into an appropriate planned point of entry into the property to the north. And it can meet back up with where it was originally planned to curve to the northwest. And it ultimately will meet up with the existing Palomino Parkway on the north side of McCartney. Just like with the other presentation, this site is also next to the infamous Walton parcel. And the owners of the Walton parcel did also provide comment as a result of public notification for this item, just with the same general inquiry, how this property was going to get access. So staff is recommending a similar condition that essentially, prior to major site plan approval for development of sites within this PAD next to the eastern boundary, there would need to be a reciprocal access to be worked out. Regarding the public notification process, we did follow what's required by code. And I did mention that we did hear from the ownership of the Walton parcel. We also received an inquiry from the Arizona State Land Board. They own land to the west of the site, and they just had concern about the Hennis Road alignment because Hennis is planned to run along the section line. However, this development would only be responsible for dedication and development of the site of Hennis that's on their property. And our city engineering staff did find that that width and improvements were appropriate for the amount of traffic that this site was going to be generating. In the future, if the state land board land goes to develop, they would be responsible for dedication and improvements of their side. Or if there's another project in the area that warrants improvements to the roadway network for the other project to function, they or we would have to discuss the conveyance of property for Hennis at that time. So staff does make a recommendation that Planning Commission move to forward to City Council a recommendation to approve this PAD amendment for Vista Ranch, and it's subject to technical modifications and conditions of record that have also been updated slightly, and I've passed those out as well. It just took care of a couple of clerical errors, and it also, I do want to say it did remove the last condition that was within the staff report regarding dedication of land for the Courtson I-10 interchange. That's been completely removed, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, very good. Commissioners, any questions?
Nothing here.
No? All right. Oh, no. That's good either way. All right, would the owner, their representative, the applicant, their representative, like to come up and address this issue?
Hello, I'm Josh Hannon with EPS Group, 1130 Alma School in Mesa. And just want to say thanks to James and staff. They did a great job, and we're here to answer any questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant? All right, we're going to be easy on you. Yes. All right, thank you. Appreciate you coming. All right, I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Anyone like to address this issue from the public? Please come up. Seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. Make a motion that we forward a recommendation to the city council for a request by EPS Group on behalf of CB Equity LLC for a major amendment to the Vista Ranch Planned Area Development Zone District near southwest corner of Courtson and I-10, covered under DSA-22-00134 with the technical modifications on record from the staff.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chairman Benedict?
Aye. Very good, motion passes. Good job. All right. Well, and open the meeting for any comments from the public. General comments from the public. Seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting. And planning director have reports for us.
Yes, sir. So, firstly, we approved a couple minor site plans administratively. We added 6 lots to the Spanish Trails Manufactured Home Park. There was a PAD amendment that you had approved to allow them to do that, and council approved. So they came back and actually added those. We did a minor amendment to the site plan for Chick-fil-A to allow them to modify their drive-through lane and a building addition, some canopies. So that was done administratively. City Council approved a couple things that you had recommended. The plat for Lucid Motors and a major amendment to the Courts and Hennis PAD as well. Then on your monthly development center reports, provided you a couple things of note. On the building permit data, if you look at, interestingly, if you look at the multifamily, this month we approved 384 apartment units. For the year so far, for the 3 months of the year, we've already permitted 480 new apartment units. So new apartments are being constructed in the community. Those are our zonings and major site plans that you've previously approved. And they're moving forward. That's really positive news, I believe, for the community to provide some additional housing. The other thing that's kind of good and bad news, if you look at your land use summary report, you can see that this month we took in 30 new land use applications. For the first 3 months of this year, we've taken in 81 new land use applications. So what that means is planning staff is going to be really busy reviewing those, and eventually they're going to hit your docket. So you're going to be busy too. So development activity is still pretty brisk in Casa Grande. So that's it for the reports, Mr. Chair.
So all 81 of these are gonna come to us, huh?
No, some of them will handle administratively, but the lion's share will be coming forward, yeah.
So don't plan on being here till 7:30, is that what you're saying?
You've had it easy the last few months.
We've had it easy. Very good, all right. Okay, that's that. Well, commissioners, I think we're at the end of the evening.
Now it's time to say goodbye.
You wanna say it? You need to make a motion.
No.
Motion adjourned. You can do that.
Can I motion to adjourn?
Can you?
Yes.
Will you?
Yes. Let's motion to adjourn.
Second that.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Where you at,
Aye.
Andrew? Sleeping? Yeah. There.
Yay.